Thanks so much, Mac. Well, it's good to be here tonight. I apologize in advance for the quality of my voice. I'm a part-time pastor. I preached last Sunday, and I immediately lost my voice thereafter and got sick. And so if I sound like Kermit the Frog, I apologize. There's nothing I can do about it. It's good to be back, not only in Athens, but in the state of Alabama. I was actually raised in Mobile, graduated high school there before heading off to college. But I was here, as Max said, as a part of the branding and marketing exercise that you did. I think, Trish, was that a little over a year ago? Yeah, I came in the second trip and kind of did some visualization tools and photo renderings for that project, some of which you'll see in just a minute. One technical thing, you can see I've put on here very clearly workshop number 1. There are going to be 2 others this week. Tomorrow night, at the same time, but at the Boys and Girls Club, we will do this exact same workshop, but in another part of the city, hopefully with an equally large crowd. The third workshop, which will be back here Wednesday night, again, same time, 5:30, will be different from either one of those 2. And I would strongly encourage you to come back for that one if you possibly can spare the time, because tonight's kind of the gut of this meeting is a lot of verbal input into a series of questions that I'm going to ask you that will extract some information that will guide our work. The third night is going to be a lot of fun. It's what we call a visual preferences survey. And we're going to be showing you a series of issues. It can be an issue such as gateway treatments, or streetscapes, or street furnishings, or residential development options. And we're going to show you a series of photos. So if you really get tired of people talking and you like to see stuff, Wednesday night is for you. And you will not only have input by the selection you choose, but you will also get to prioritize that. And I will talk about the importance of that. So tonight, kind of verbal input, Wednesday night, visual input into the process. All right, so here's the one thing I can guarantee. Athens is going to change. Athens is going to change. And so you've got 2 choices. You can just sit back and let the change come to you and just react to it, or you can manage the change so that you get the future that you prefer and you maintain the character and the quality of life that you love and enjoy here. I was speaking with Jay before this workshop started, and he talked about how many engineers relocate here, and even if the job goes away, they never leave. Okay? Because it's just, and then somebody else, I think it was Harold, talked about the ranking of Athens in the state of Alabama and the quality of life that's to be experienced here. And the last thing that you want is to lose precisely the thing that you have fallen in love with here. And so that's the purpose of all this. Here's a real highfalutin answer or definition to the question, what is this future land use plan that you kept talking about? I would use the words, it's a plan to foster economic development, potential keyword, in the entire community, not just downtown, not just the interstate, but the entire community, built around a compelling and a collaborative vision. Let me just unpack those last 3 words. In terms of compelling, how many of you have picked up a zoning ordinance and felt inspired? Yeah, that was my expectation. Maybe some attorneys in the office, in the room might. But for most citizens like me and you, it doesn't get us jazzed or excited. Socrates had this really great quote. He says, people never, he says, the soul never dreams without a picture in mind. And so one of the things that we want to help do is lend visualization to the input you give us so that you can be inspired. People need to see their future to rally behind it. If you just give them words, if you just give them a book, it's not the same thing. And so Andy Cowback, the gentleman who was with us earlier today from Annapolis, Maryland, in my estimation is one of the nation's premier illustrators. This kid, I call him a human pencil. And he could just draw these beautiful renderings that bring these kind of dry planning techniques to life. And then what I bring to the table is photo renderings. I am married to, well, first of all, probably every husband in the room can say this. I'm married way over my head, okay? Can I get an amen from the men in the room? Okay. But my wife is a brilliant doctor, but the problem is she doesn't understand 2-dimensional drawings, which is kind of a bummer for me. And so I'll bring home this beautiful plan that Andy did and said, what do you think about this? And she goes, what are those red rectangles? I'm like, that's not a red rectangle, that's a new building. I said, well, what are those green squiggly things? Those aren't green squiggly things. Those are trees, you know. But my wife, as smart as she is in certain areas of life, can't understand planning terminology in the mediums that we choose sometimes two-dimensionally to illustrate our plans. And so we also use photo manipulations because most people can intuitively understand a photograph. And so last year when I was here, you know, this was an illustration of a before and after the square. Some of these things that you've already done. You know, you've already put up the square banners. Thank you, Tricia. You've done a great job. Hopefully we'll get the crosswalks. I know you're applying for a grant right now for some streetscape enhancements around the square. Well, one of my favorites was the old Trinity School and how we illustrated this building is not at all too far gone. It needs to be saved and preserved and could be a really interesting and important place in the life of this community. But it also needs to be collaborative. And I really hope and pray that if you're sitting in the audience tonight, you know how blessed you are. Because your city council is under no obligation whatsoever to ask your opinion about any of this. You know, there are a lot of communities all across America today that are doing these plans behind closed doors, and one day they just present it to you, and it's like, I hope you like it. And your council said, and Mac and his staff, it's like, that's not the approach we want to take. We want the entire community to have a voice into the process and the future vision of our place. And I'll stand before you right now and say this. I've already told you I'm a part-time pastor. I hope that means I don't lie. But I have worked now in well over 200-300 communities doing master plans of various scales and sizes. I have yet to not work in a place where if you ask questions and you actually listen to the answers, that we eventually didn't understand or learn something new that benefited the resultant plan. And so that's the reason that you're in the audience today. It's because you care and because you have wisdom to impart into this process that we need. So with that in mind, and there's one more thing. So we got a compelling, we got a collaborative, and we got a vision. We got any church people in the house tonight? Okay, good. Well, you know, Proverbs 29:18, here's a 30-second Sunday school lesson. It says, where there's no vision, the people perish. Modern translations tend to say, where there's no vision, the people are unrestrained. And I think that translation lends a lot of direction into this process. I like to think of this notion of being restrained, and let me clarify. To be unrestrained as pertains to planning means everybody's doing good things, but they're all going in different directions. And what a vision does is it restrains it to make sure everybody's working in the same unified direction. If you think about the Tennessee River, as long as that river is bounded or restrained by those two banks, it's a wonderful force for good. But the minute you remove those restraints, it becomes a force for damage and destruction and flooding. And so that's the reason that you're here tonight. This is the reason you've been invited to the process, is we want to bring some restraint over all the direction that we could go and let you give guidance and input into the path that we should take so that we're all moving in the same direction. Can I get an amen? All right. So what it's not, though, and I think this is really important to state before we show some pretty visuals, is it's not set in stone. I think a better analogy is a roadmap. In other words, whatever comes out of this process, I can guarantee you with 100% certainty your community 15 years from now will not look exactly like the plan for 15 years from now. It's impossible. Nobody's that good. Nobody can predict that accurately the factors that are going to affect your place. So, but I think of it as a roadmap. We want to give you options and directions because one of the values to a master plan, in my estimation, is not what it tells you that you should do, but it also tells you what you should not do. And let me give you an illustration, and I'm going to turn the floor over to you. Being from the South, people rarely pronounce the names of their towns the way they should. I mean, everybody in the room would say that's Lancaster, of course, but no, in South Carolina it's pronounced Lancaster. And if you don't pronounce it that way, you ain't from around here, are you, boy? So in Lancaster, South Carolina, look at this building in the background, and it's a very, very significant building. It is their county courthouse. By the way, there's a few parallels here between Lancaster and Athens. Well, that particular courthouse was designed by a gentleman by the name of Robert Mills. I hope that rings a bell. He happens to be the same guy that designed the Washington Monument. He was the first federal architect for the United States. He hailed from Charleston, South Carolina. Lancaster possesses 2 Robert Mills designed buildings, this one in a jail. I can only think of 2 or 3 other cities in all of America that can boast multiple Robert Mills designed buildings. So what's my point? My point is this. The value of a master plan not only tells you what you should do, but it tells you what you shouldn't do. Lancaster almost messed up big time in 2 ways. The first way, this may resonate with you a little bit too. They passed a hospitality tax, but at first they didn't have a plan in place on how they were going to spend it. That was the good news. The bad news was they didn't have a plan in place on how to spend it. That was a joke. The point is, if you don't have a plan for how you're going to use things, then everybody comes out of the woodwork and they have their own opinions about how it is. So that's the first thing. They needed a plan to guide, strategic public realm expenses that would guide the future of their community. The second problem they had is, in absence of a plan, you fall prey to the tyranny of the urgent. I got a sneaky suspicion that your city council does not have all the disposable income in the world, right? You're probably on a very limited budget. They were here too. And in absence of a plan, they almost said yes to this. A franchise drugstore that shall remain unnamed came to them and asked to plop down a building right here on the corner. Now, what you need to know about that corner is 2 things. This is the main gateway into their main street, and the building in its parking lot would have come to 30 feet from that Robert Mills design building, a franchise architecture drugstore. Why did they come within 1 vote of passing that? Because they didn't develop a plan that would say that's not a good idea. And so it's important to have this plan in place that not only tells you what you should shoot for, but also the things not to do that will cause you to be short-sighted in your future initiatives. So now let's complete the thought about Lancaster and its parallels to Athens. So just like we'll do here, we'll do a community-wide plan. It's important that we look at all aspects and areas of your community. They too had an interstate interchange, and they experienced what I call the interstate dynamic. It goes something like this. People are trucking down the interstate. They take the Athens or the Lancaster exit. They fill up their car with gas. They might not eat something at a fast food restaurant, get back on the interstate and leave. Sometime later, somebody asks, have you ever been to Athens, Alabama? And their response is, yes. Which, while being technically true, isn't true in the things that matter most. They missed downtown, the heart and soul of Athens, by about how many miles? 2 miles. Same thing was happening here. It's like, guys, we love the fact that you stopped at our interstate interchange, but we need to get you to the heart and the soul of our town. We need you to see our historic neighborhoods. We need you to see our downtown area. And so our plan involved all of these illustrations to get people off the interstate with signage that would direct them to the downtown. At the top of the exit ramp, to show improvements in directional signage like you all are doing that would direct them to the downtown. It amazes me, you should go do a check in your community, how much of our signage in our communities direct people out of our town instead of into our town. And so we're going to put our wayfinding signage in front of that signage that directs people out of town. And then back to the heart and soul of our community. So we open up the views to the Robert Mills courthouse, enhance the arrival gateways through these crosswalks. But they wanted to install a governmental building there, and so we did a rendering there, and here's the final product. And all ended well because they had a plan. And so because they didn't say yes to the first opportunity that came their way, they were positioned well for the kinds of decisions that will support the kind of community that they are. So now it's your turn. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'm going to give you 2 ways that you can respond. The first and the most obvious is you just simply answer. If you want to raise your hand, that's up to you. I'll try to spot you, call it out, and if you can't hear it, I'll reiterate it so everybody hears it. The second way is, it's quite possible that there's somebody in the room with brilliant ideas, but they feel a little insecure about saying something in public in front of people. And by the way, that's not uncommon. That's a realistic fear. And so we also have postcards and we have pencils. And so if you have a response to any of these questions that you really want us to have, but you would prefer not to say it in front of people, just jot it down and give it to either Mac or Allison or myself or Micah with the planning department. And that response will be just as valid as anything that is said out loud, okay? All right, so let's start humorously. We'll get more seriously. So let's pretend you've got this best friend, and this best friend lives elsewhere. And they call you one day and say, hey, I'm considering relocating to either some other place or Athens. What would you tell them that would persuade them to choose Athens over the other place?
I'd say come visit.
Okay. Why?
Because the people here is open door.
Okay, so the people.
You know, we accept people like that.
Okay.
We want people to relocate here because of who we are and what we can offer, like our school programs, our city, most of all.
Okay. So we're going to tell them, hey, we got great people here, and not only are they great people, but they're very accepting of newcomers. Apparently in the room today, I've already met a bunch of newcomers. We got great schools. We got a great city. Yes, sir. Right. You will not be bored here. I like the way you said it a while ago, Ron. You said, if somebody says that there's nothing to do here, they aren't trying hard enough. What else? What else would you tell them? Oh, and by the way, you can pick on your neighbors if you want to. Not these neighbors, but I mean like Huntsville and Decatur. Who wants to work in that traffic? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Still has historic character. I mean, your houses and your churches and the square, just phenomenal. What else?
I think we have great faith communities.
Yeah, great faith-based community. That's very evident. What else? You got great food. I ate at Village Pizza and had the fire and ice wings again. Thank you, Jesus. Good. Just in case somebody didn't hear it, you know, a lot of communities in the South focus on retirement, which is not a wrong or a bad thing. It's just that here, you know, younger people with families are quite welcome, and so there's opportunities. That's terrific. And I think the best communities are those that have a great mix of both. What else? Yes, ma'am.
We have a strong network of volunteer organizations that work together to better this community.
Right. Strong network of volunteer agencies, like Spirit of Athens. I'm just kidding. What else? What else would you tell them? Great place to raise a family. Why? Is it safe? Okay. Yes, sir. No way. We're so smart, aren't we? Yeah. He gets credit for it. Yeah. It is. I got to be honest with you. And 2 weeks ago, I was working with Andy in an inner city neighborhood in Baltimore. 4 months before that, I was in these 2 really rough neighborhoods in Chicago. And I thought, why would you choose to live here? I mean, I think in some cases people don't have a way out. But this whole notion of waking up every day fearful for your children and your life, I'm really grateful for the kind of places where we get to live. What else? Yes, sir. Absolutely. Yeah, and Athens State is not only a great asset, they have an amazing audiovisual team comprised of Curtis and Jim. Yeah. How was that? Was that a good prop? Okay. I'm being serious, by the way. I show up in some places and be amazed what you get to work with. All right, what else? Just a couple more before we move on. Yes, ma'am. That ought to, you got to slap that on a sign somewhere. Small city charm, big city small town charm, big city atmosphere. You know, and one thing that I told, I don't know if it was Ron or somebody else, the thing that you benefit from is not only the place you have, in other words, it's intact as it exists, but if you want something else, you got Nashville, Huntsville, Birmingham just a little bit away. So you got the best of both worlds, the small town or the big city. What else? Any other things? It serves as a good bedroom community. Right. Okay. Any other options? Any other ideas? Okay, we're going to be fair. Now, full disclaimer, especially since I'm recording this, I got a great mother-in-law in the deal. Okay, I mean, I really did. So I couldn't even answer this question because my in-laws are amazing. But for the sake of this question, you have to pretend yours aren't. And some of you in the room's like, I ain't got to pretend. So if your mother-in-law, instead of your best friend, called and said, hey, I'm thinking about moving somewhere, or Athens, what would you say about Athens to dissuade her from choosing to live in your town? We're going to pick on Athens for just a minute. This is the last time we're going to pick on Athens. Okay. Yes, ma'am. Oh, yeah, that could be both a good and a bad thing. As a parent, I love the fact that everybody knows my kids' business, but I don't like it when they know mine. It always freaks me out when I'm walking my neighborhood and goes, oh, I like the color you repainted your dining room. I'm like, how did you know that? You know. What else?
About every hour your teeth get rattled with the train.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I thought Mac was joking this morning, but I spent enough time today to get stopped by the trains.
Every church in Athens would love to have a list of silence on Sunday.
I'm sure. Okay, fair enough. What else?
Your wheelchair has no sidewalks. In some areas.
Okay, so we got sidewalk issues and accessibility issues. Okay, and that would really address the demographic this young lady was referring to. Good. Anything else? I'm not going to let you pick on yourself too long, but we need to be fair. Going once. Going twice. Yes, ma'am. That's a good point. So a place to go, community, shelters or whatever in the event of tornado, because you have so many tornadoes coming through here. We saw the results of one this morning. That's a very reasonable concern. Okay, good. All right, so we're going to have two magic wand change questions. The first one's going to be really simple. The second one, you're going to have to think a little bit harder. The first thing you need to know is, I promise you we're going to look at all of these areas. Absolutely. But you may have a sense, either based on where you live or where you work or the people you know, about areas in town that might need a little bit more support than other areas at the current moment. And so what I'd love for you to help us do is give a sense of priority. If we had to, if we couldn't take up all the areas of town at the same time, and we had to focus at one place first and the next place, how would you help us, prioritize these? So, if you could only change one part of town, would it either be the interstate area, the downtown area, your residential neighborhoods, or all of the above equally? Now, the only way I know how to answer this question is just a simple show of hands, okay? And I'll do the counting. So all in favor of number one, the interstate area, raise your hand. Okay, number two. Number three. And lastly, number four. Okay. Allison? I had 3 for number 1, 5 for number 2, 8 for number 3, and 5 for number 4. Okay, now you have to put your thinking caps on. So let's pretend, by the way, I made a huge mistake in a community once where I forgot to state this question with let's pretend, and they thought they really did get a grant overnight. And it was pretty disappointing when I said, oh no, it's just hypothetical. But let's pretend while you were sleeping last night, You wake up to the news that Athens just received this major grant, and with it you can do one thing. What one thing would you do that in your opinion, and only your opinion, I'm not asking anybody else, your opinion, you think would do the most good for Athens? And by the way, we're going to sit on this question a little bit, and later I may even ask some specific questions. But for now, just think, what if I could do one thing, in other words, not a place, but a project, what would I do?
I would say renovate some of our neighborhoods that are just run down and worn.
Okay.
That's not kept up with other parts of the city.
Okay.
I would like to see that. I'd like to see renovation.
Great. Renovations, especially in our residential neighborhoods. And we can talk about, because of our travels, we've seen some pretty amazing strategies that certain places have employed that have really allowed them to get some traction in that, because it's a complicated thing because you're dealing with private property. But there are some cities that have done a really good job. Yes, sir.
To me, it's the details that really go to a town. I think we've got a good, things are good as they are. The details can be spell out quality.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a really neat town. I'd like to spend some more time here. I think those details can be a project. So, like you're talking about neighborhood sidewalks with really crisp curves.
Nice.
Not the crumbly.
Yes.
That kind of stuff. So details in the downtown area that just kind of give it that fitness. I don't say where to go.
Let me ask you, first of all, I really applaud your answer. It's a thoughtful answer. It's not just kind of pie in the sky thing, but it's this notion of taking care of the details. Are there any other details that come to your mind when you think about, if I could enhance the details around that? You mentioned sidewalks, you mentioned streetscape and safety. Other details, what are some of the things that come to your mind when you say the word details?
I think of things like sidewalks, curves, I think of light posts.
Yep.
That kind of thing, I guess.
Good. Okay.
But they're good quality, so it's not just this plastic thing up there, but also
Yes.
random.
Well, yep. Yeah, just that element of quality and consistency just speaks to the fact that somebody here is thinking about those details. I want to come back to your comment and say, you especially, but all of you, you need to come back Wednesday night. For example, I'm going to show up a slide, and we're going to have 4 different sidewalk treatments. We have 4 different benches, 4 different light poles, 4 different trash cans. And so if you want to have a voice into some of those details, Wednesday night is your night. Yes, sir. Okay. Yep. There you go. So let's take care of our infrastructure, especially our sewer. And boy, it's so frustrating. I feel sometimes for our elected officials because a lot of times that's where the money goes, but the problem is you don't get to see it. It's not a real sexy out there project. It's underneath the ground, but I agree with you. Yes, sir. In the back. Didn't you have your hand up? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, Jay. Yep. Absolutely. Yep. That's exactly right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Well said, Jay. Again, to reiterate in case no one you couldn't hear it, is let's make sure we have a very distinctive interstate interchange. Because if you want to equate it to a house, it's either your front door or it's your front yard. And you can't hope to invite them in if the front yard or the front door doesn't look good. But more specifically, what he said was we need something that's distinctive because all of these interstate exits, I know for real because I drove 7 hours Sunday night, they start to all look the same, and you need to distinguish yourself. Somebody mentioned where I'm from, Rock Hill, South Carolina. Real attractive gateway at their interstate. And what's important for Rock Hill is because most people are just mindlessly driving north to Charlotte. This is where you insert mindlessly driving north to Nashville. You know, and so 351 looks like whatever the numbers were before and after it. And so if you can have some distinction, that's the first step in getting them off. And if you will never get them downtown if you don't get them off the interstate. That's simple. But if you get them off, then you got a chance. Well said. Yes, sir. Ron. And there were no wrong answers.
I want to go back when we went through we basically said at that time, we want beautiful city, we want landscape, no walls, and no doors.
Okay. It's good to know.
Job opportunity.
Okay. Terrific. Another good project. Tricia.
I know everybody's really hands-on thinking, and I think that I want to have more housing options for young families.
Good.
Hopefully, those have a great potential to be on that neighborhood.
Yep.
And to create a people walkable, living thing. I think young people kind of want to be
Right.
in that activity.
Good. More housing options. Yes, sir. Right. Right. Okay. Yes, sir.
I keep thinking the interstate idea, but for me, I guess it's more to grant something more, something that's might drive down the interstate, local, but why I think the destination, that's it you're looking for, there's something to come to.
Yeah.
And when I think about that, I think about the downtown area again. That when I think about Lincoln Village in Huntsville, Low Neal, residents that are completely on Flying Monkey, artsy stuff.
Right.
In Huntsville, I see so many similarities already.
Mm-hmm.
Already been done. That if you have something happening in downtown all the time, people will come to it, and
Right.
maybe even buy planes.
Right.
That you can get there and just be a
Great.
a big event every weekend. What's the destination, not a side track.
And you know, that is not a bad economic development strategy at all. City of Greenville, South Carolina, which is an amazing city in the southeast. That's how they turned it around. It wasn't through bricks and mortar initially. Their first job was they hired a program coordinator whose job it was to wake up every day and figure out how to program something in their downtown. Yeah, and if you've never heard this story, you've got to hear it because it doesn't even sound true. It's so outlandish. Downtown Greenville was so desolate that the hotel located down there, they had to pay their employees to go to the events and hold a beer in their hand to give a fake sense of population for their events. How about that for a strategy, Tricia? They had to pay people. But they were smart. They cut off the drinking at 7. Everybody's downtown. Everybody's hungry. Restaurateurs figured, okay, every Thursday night I've got 3,000 people downtown. Now they've got 88 restaurants in about a 6-block area. Reinvestment in downtown Greenville last year was $4 billion with a B dollars. Just amazing place, but it started through programming. And so since Tricia can't use the word no, just ask her to do that and she'll handle that for you. Okay. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. You've got a supporter in me on that job, for sure. And it feels like the heart and soul of that community, and it needs its heart and soul back. Yes, ma'am. Good. Okay. So a major entertainment center, particularly something that might cater to a younger crowd. I'm going to ask a follow-up question in just a minute about this question that might cue some ideas for you to be thinking on. Yes, sir.
I'd like to go back to the railroad. I think we had a chance for one grant building a railroad overpass to keep the railroad off the ground from Elm Street all the way down to Sandifer Road. Would certainly silence the railroad or go with the silence program that was described to us about a year ago.
It's a great suggestion.
The railroad's important, but we've spent money on the kids with ball fields.
Yep.
We've spent money. We've got excellent schools. It's time now to take care of the regular people who drive these streets every day.
Yes, sir.
North part of Athens, all the streets need to be standardized, have proper radius curves on every intersection. Half our intersections don't align with one side or the other.
That's so frustrating.
And it's a lot of accidents could be prevented that way. And if we have the railroad overhead, there wouldn't be any evacuation problems if we ever have to evacuate from Brown's Ferry from one side of the railroad track to the other side.
Well, I like your suggestion. In a way, it's similar yet different from a previous gentleman. It's infrastructure, but yours is above ground. It's real strategic above ground infrastructure, whether it's pertaining to relocating the railroad or fixing the street issues you described. Very good. Yes, sir. Okay. New high school. No doubt. Good. Okay, I'm going to cheat. This isn't fair of me, but I'm just curious. When we studied a bunch of maps today and when we did a tour, there were a couple of areas in town that just kind of jumped at us. Sometimes when you look at a map, it's like things just, that's weird. What is that? And the what's weird, what is that was the chicken plant. So let's just say we could wave our magic wand, property ownership issues aside. You could wave a wand and do anything with that site you wanted. I'm just curious. Let's brainstorm together. What would you want to do on that site? You already know. Okay. Okay, you go first.
If ownership and money was not an issue, I would like to turn that into the Athens Recycling Center.
Okay.
So that we have room to expand our services.
Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Well, I can follow up. There has been some discussion with the corporate office about that whole facility. And a dream and goal combined would be to have a whole Central Park area. You have a street that cuts through with potentially a new high school there to carry the infrastructure in that area. And that's what I'd really like to do. It's 32 acres there. You could almost have a business incubator along with some kind of garden in the Central Park area.
Yeah.
It's an eyesore that we have, or that I have personally expressed to the corporate office, that it has no potential future for ever coming back to downtown. And
Okay.
5 blocks from
Good.
your
Right. Yes. Yes.
What was the location that you asked?
Pilgrim's Pride.
Sorry, the Pilgrim's Pride chicken processing plant. And I know y'all missed the smell, but I'm just kidding. Okay. Yes, ma'am. You had your.
I would say apartments because it's so close to that and we don't have homes. A lot of people.
Yeah, to me, this notion of an urban park ringed by quality high-end apartments, now you've got this really strong edge. You've got eyes on the park for safety, especially the gentleman over here, if there's enough land for the high school as well. You want to talk about land values over there just shooting through the roof? Anybody else? Other ideas? I can't believe you didn't say your entertainment center for the... Yeah, we were doing work in Canton, Mississippi, and they took this old cotton gin, which was no longer being used, and they turned it into the coolest blues joint. I mean, and that sort of metal, rusted patina kind of building. I mean, that's what the blues is about anyway. And so it's amazing that some of those kind of edgy areas can really serve as quality entertainment venues. All right, now we're going to have a ton of fun. This might be my favorite question of all. We're going to play the family game, and this is how the family game question goes. In just a minute, I'm going to list 3, and then eventually a 4th. You'll be able to figure out the 4th one. Cities. And for every one of these communities, you're going to assign them human characteristics. The first one is you're going to have to figure out their gender, male or female. You're going to have to talk about some of his or her characteristics, degree of education, likes, dislikes. So allow me to illustrate from 2 communities I've lived in Alabama. Montgomery. I'd say Montgomery is definitely a he. It's a man. This man he's definitely into law and government. He's pretty patriotic because of the air base. He likes to stick his nose in everybody's business. He's got kind of a gritty side, but also a cool side. All right, Mobile, I think, is definitely a female. And she loves everything Southern and antebellum. She loves the hoop skirts, and her favorite flower is the azalea. She loves history. She's still kind of mad at New Orleans that they get credit for Mardi Gras and she doesn't, okay? So, with that in mind, let's start talking about Huntsville. So is Huntsville a man or a woman? Anybody a man? Okay, all right. Talk to me about this man. He's an engineer. I'm not going to say what image that brings up because Jay's in the crowd. But I'm just kidding. Okay, he's an engineer. He has a vision. Okay. But he's changing. Keep going. He's amen, sister. When I heard about their annexation plans, I was like, "You got to be kidding me! How do you get from that far over to here? It's crazy." So he's greedy. All right, what else? Good. Hey, by the way, you can have fun with him too. Just pick on him. I won't tell him. He had an appetite. Okay. Oh, nice. A giant amoeba. The blob. What else? You probably know what we're doing with these questions, but in case you don't, and it may help inform your thoughts about Huntsville and others, if there's one thing I've learned in 20-something years of community planning and economic development, it is near impossible to market yourself if you don't know who you are. And it's also hard to market yourself if you don't know who your competition is. So it's real important that we understand the characteristics of these places, and then we know how to position ourselves uniquely and well. All right, so anything else about Huntsville? Okay. So it's a well-educated man. Okay. Very good. All right, Decatur. Man or woman? Boy, I'm detecting some. Okay, so he's a man. Tell me about this man. What? He dirty? As in unclean or like a dirty old man? Blue collar. Okay, good, good. All right. So he's blue collar, hardworking, industrious. What else? Family man or not? A little bit. Okay. What else? Does Decatur have a drinking problem? I'm just kidding. Industrial city. Okay. It's growing. Okay. Smaller appetite than Huntsville. Okay. Madison, man or woman? Woman? Finally, we have a woman to talk about. Okay. Talk. She's been married a lot of times. Good. Okay. Okay. She's very fertile. Good.
She's landlocked.
She's landlocked. Okay. She's very vanilla. Okay. That's probably why her husband's left her. Okay. What else?
She can't figure out what she
Oh, very good. She can't figure out what she wants. And I apologize. I don't know anything about Madison to be able to validate what you're telling me. So,
He's in there, can't figure out, where she's already.
Tricia, why do you know so much about Madison? Okay. You aren't projecting, are you? I'm just kidding. We're just kidding. She has phenomenal growth. Really? Okay. You may. Okay, she's dirty, she's messy. Okay. All right. Okay.
She is ranked in the top 5 in the state of Alabama of places to live and raise a family.
Really? Well,
Place of choice in a lot of the industrial folks that come here from the north with their children because of excellent school systems.
got it.
And it's close.
So what?
Also recreation for families in Green Bay.
Okay, and I got him and a good.
We got a sidewalk, it's convenient, posted off work,
Got it. Yes, sir.
And that's a lot of shopping, places.
Okay. I just figured out what this place is like. There's a place, it's this Homecoming Queen. Yeah, there's a place, it's a suburb of Jackson, Mississippi, also called Madison. And a lot of people really like it for all the reasons you just said. But when I go there, it doesn't feel real to me. It just feels like Disney World. It's fake. I mean, it was all built in the last, 15 years. And when you have a gas station with Corinthian columns, it's like, that just feels weird, So, okay, I got it. All right. Guess who's next? All right, man or woman? Let's have a throwdown on this one. Man or woman? Oh, she's transgender. Okay, all right. She's a Southern lady. Okay. Ooh, that's an awesome one. She's a grandmama who gives good hugs. Great answer. What else about Athens? So she's humble. She's smart, but she doesn't want to brag on herself. I think you're right about that. All right, what else? A little bit older because she has a lot of history. She's comfortable. That's what I think of when I think of my grandma. Yeah, she's entitled. I'm just kidding. But she's set in her ways. Okay.
She's also in the top 10.
There you go. But she's number one in our hearts. All right, what else? So she's well educated and she cares about other people being educated. Good. Generally cheerful. Okay. So I'm trying to think how to phrase that in the form of her. So she prefers living in a small town with a big city charm. Okay. Any other qualities to Athens? She knows all of her neighbors. And what color they painted their dining room. All right. Good job. She gets along? Good. All right. This one may help us because everybody in this room, by the way, we only have 2 more questions to go. We're almost done. You've either lived in other places or you've traveled to other places. Now, let me tell you what this question is not. This question is not, everything was better where I was from. If Athens, okay, we will run you out of the room if you take that. Okay, I'm just kidding, but I don't want you to say it was better somewhere else. What I want you to say is, I visited or I lived in X town. And what I liked about it was their sidewalks connected all the neighborhoods. I think Athens could benefit from having connected sidewalks. Or I visited this town, Fairhope, and I liked the fact that they had a plethora of landscaping everywhere you went. I think Athens could benefit from it. Okay, see, to get it, what we need most of all is the characteristics that you liked about the place more than the place. Those elements that you think Athens could benefit from. Floor's open. Yes, ma'am. Okay, Atlanta, and the reason is the fact that there were entertainment opportunities for just about every age group all the time. Yes, ma'am. Where? Yeah, great. But why? Okay, so how would you apply those characteristics here? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the characteristic we want to take away from Carrie was they understood their proximities, they understood their potentials, they understood their limitations, and they created a plan to maximize their strengths and minimize their weaknesses. And if you've never been to Carrie, it's a smashing success. Yes, sir. Amen. No doubt about it. Tricia. Okay. Okay. I like it. So Franklin, and the characteristics that Tricia noted, I took two away. One was quality, and the second was consistency. Where I come from, if you've ever seen Charleston, then you may have heard about Beaufort. And in my estimation, Beaufort is every bit as beautiful as Charleston. But the problem is when you get off of Highway 17 to get to Beaufort, you drive through crap, if I can say crap in public. And I kept driving on the way to Beaufort and thinking, this doesn't look like the postcard. And so that whole notion of consistency of experience is also important. Yes, ma'am. There you go. So Madison, and especially for the convenience of life as a pedestrian and accessing your basic needs of life. Terrific. Providence area. Thank you. Other places or characteristics you'd love to see here. And please excuse me, I've got to get a cough drop. Somebody else? Oh yeah, from that. I've got to fill the dead things. Okay, so y'all done with characteristics? Okay. Thank you. Great. Did you get that, Allison?
Seaside.
And a lot of it has something to do with code. It's always something.
Okay.
I really love the trees at Auburn until I'm overzealous Alabama thing.
Sure. That was amazing how you could get in a Bama-Auburn joke in the middle of a public. Wow. Only in Alabama. Okay. All right. So last question. I'm sure they did.
There's Seaside, which truly shows, you know, not the houses necessarily, but when you look at it, it has all of the same center downtown areas we do. And one of the things they have are really, really nice food trucks, oddly enough. But it is the center where everything gets started.
Right.
All the food trucks are there. Now, theirs aren't mobile.
Right.
You know, you can see a vision of something like that.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal for another big event.
Well, I just, there are parts of your town, and I apologize, I don't know all the names, but it's kind of a low-lying area where you've got the farmer's market and the two swings that look back up at the courthouse. And, man, I can just see that whole area activated, in addition to the courthouse square area, of course. But, yeah, those pop-up retail and pop-up restaurants are huge these days. All right, so last question, and this will help you. I should have said this as well. If you think of another answer to a question we've already done, and we've already passed it or we finished tonight, again, just write it down and give it to us, and we'll add that to the commentary. So you get to answer this question. You can answer both of them or just one of them. And you just get to complete the sentence, and it's, Randy and Andy and Mac and your staff, when y'all are developing this future land use plan, whatever you do blank. And, or you can also say, guys, when you're developing this future land use plan, whatever you do, don't. And let me give you an example. So when you're developing this plan, whatever you do make sure our neighborhoods are addressed. Or whatever you do, don't turn us into someplace else. We want to maintain our sense of, our unique sense of being Athens. We don't want to become like Madison or some other place. All right, you get it? So this is your opportunity to give us marching orders about what you either want us to do or what you don't want us to do. Floor is open. Yes, sir. Okay, so whatever you do include, well, let me just say for the record that that's a separate plan that's also going to be a part of the overall comprehensive. It's not a part of it. That's why it's called land use, not transportation. But that is in the works. But I got to be honest with you, Ron, it's not a part of this one, other than how the physical interface of those things. Sorry. Yes, ma'am. Well said. Make sure you look at the entire community. So whatever you do treat all areas equally. Good. Somebody else? Yes, ma'am.
Don't improve any neighborhoods or create any new neighborhoods that do not have sidewalks and bike lanes. Young people that come in want to be active.
Amen. So make sure to quote that gentleman in the back before us. Make sure they have the details. What else? Yes, sir.
Whatever you do, let's fix our problems before we start on something new.
Okay. Good answer. Whatever you do, take care of what we got before we bite off something new to chew. That's a fair comment. Anybody else?
I've lived here since 1966, and Northtown is always was around.
Okay.
And Randy, I'd like to piggyback on that. I'm a firm believer in what he just said. And I cannot figure out a way on my own because I'm not that good. I don't know how to fix that. I want to fix it.
Sure.
I'd like to see it fixed in my lifetime.
Are you referring to Northtown?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and it's some other places.
Right.
Northtown jumps out at everybody. Man. Drive through that. I want to fix that.
Yep.
He mentioned the word fix. I want to very bad.
Well, and I can tell you, it's certainly on Mac and his staff radar screen. That was very obvious in our conversation today. It's going to be a focus.
Do not allow another, what I would call a substandard business of any type to go into an already worn neighborhood.
Okay.
Make sure it's something positive.
Good. So whatever you do, don't allow inappropriate buildings to go into a neighborhood or area that's already struggling.
Business up in there that hinders growth
Yes,
instead of helps growth.
right.
It's kind of a conflict. Well, whatever you do, incentivize businesses that are going to
Okay, good. Whatever you do, yeah. Yeah, it's a both-and process, but whatever you do, incentivize the kind of businesses you want to attract that can be the catalyst projects to develop the funds for a lot of this work. Anybody else?
This is kind of a long issue, but with the downtown core, it's already been said in some way, we have to maintain our identity.
Yes.
And what we want to do is ensure that we have two or three things. One is if you don't have public safety, you can go down to commode in a hurry. Then you've got to have jobs, and you've got to have education, and all that builds quality of life. And it takes all of that together, in my opinion. And that's kind of a far out issue. But all the way from our faith-based communities to places to raise our children and recreation opportunities and green space, that's what attracts people and makes you unique,
Sure.
in my opinion, along with something.
Yes, sir.
Feedback on the job, so whatever you do, don't forget the new industrial park here.
Okay, good. Whatever you do, don't forget the industrial park area. Yes, ma'am.
You know, earlier you talked about things that we saw in other cities that we would like to see here. Well, I'm going to do the opposite. I lived in a city where I saw concentration on certain areas and allowing
Sure.
light to take over, and this is sort of what this gentleman was talking about. We need to make sure that light does not take down some of our older neighborhoods.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It right. Yeah. Yeah, promoting a healthy lifestyle makes a lot of sense, and you've already got a pretty strong trail system, just needs to be enhanced. You know, it's not fair for me to offer input into your community, but if I was in the audience, you know, I would say, whatever you do, don't give us a bashful plan. Give us a bold plan. Give us something that would inspire us. You know, don't give us any small ideas. So, all right. Thank you so much for your time tonight. I just want to remind you, Wednesday night, same time, 5:30, same place right here with Curtis and the wonderful AV staff. We're going to be doing a visual preferences survey. And if you've never done one, it's a lot of fun. It's going to challenge you. But if you want to speak into some of the details of the future, it's a great opportunity for that. But for the input that you've gathered or given us tonight, thank you so very much, and y'all have a wonderful evening.